Chapter 2321. Cameron suddenly got up. She had been tricked. She hung up the phone, rushed next door, and opened the door. Wayne. Waylon just got out of the shower and walked out with a towel wrapped around his waist. The water droplets had not dried off his body yet, and they rolled down his body with every movement of his chest. Water vapor surrounded him, making him look sexy. Cameron's eyes were glued to his body as she looked up and down, and she gulped. What she saw looked like a painting of a beautiful man walking out of the shower. Was he wearing nothing under the towel? Cameron's mind was racing until Waylon stood in front of her. The warm air rushed toward her, and she immediately turned around. I didn't see anything. Waylon chuckled. Haven't you seen me like this before? You should be used to it already. Why are you so shy? Cameron tooted and replied, that was the past. It's different now. She used to be a man. As long as she didn't feel awkward, others would be. But now that she was back to being a girl, she couldn't pretend that things were normal. Waylon played with her hair. Don't you want to get your hands on some of this? Her face turned red. No. No. He leaned in closer to her, grabbed her hand, and placed it on his chest. The warmth transferred from his hand made her shudder. She licked her dry lips. You asked for this. I'm not taking advantage of you. Waylon raised his brows. How does it feel? Cameron looked down. Your abs look quite good. Cameron's heart had been thumping even before she touched his abs. It would be a waste if she didn't get her hands on such a great body, so she ran her fingers down the lines of his abs and poked at them. Waylon pressed his lips together, grabbed her hand, and pulled her into his arms. Happy? Cameron was shocked. His breath was warm, blowing on the back of her neck. If you go on, I might not be able to control myself. See, calm down. Cameron froze and didn't dare move a muscle. Waylon chuckled and buried his face in her hair. How do I calm down, Cam? Tell me? Her lips were dry. If this went on, she might not be able to control herself either. An idea popped up. I can play you a song so you can calm down. He gave her a peck. What song? Ahem. Waylon laughed out loud and let her go. He then picked up his robe and slowly put it on. Why did you come to see me? Cameron crossed her arms. We didn't even have to get registered. The card is unfrozen. Waylon turned to look at her. Congratulations. Congratulations to me? Cameron walked over. I think I've been tricked. Are you working with my father? Sonny had already unfrozen her account but hadn't told her. And he must have found out about their marriage registration because Waylon had told him. Sonny would have told him about the card in return. But Waylon hadn't told her. Waylon's eyes were smiling. What do you mean working with him? Cameron squinted. Did my father tell you he unfroze my card? Don't tell me you didn't know. He shrugged. I did know. But you didn't tell me. Waylon leaned against the desk and looked at her. You came to see me before I told you. Cameron opened her mouth. Then Chapter 2322. Waylon pulled her into a hug. Since he already knows that we've registered our marriage, why not just go all the way? We shouldn't let the old man down. Cameron gnashed her teeth. I've really fallen into your trap. He raised her chin. Do you hate me? She was surprised. I didn't say that. You adore me then. Waylon brushed her lips with his thumb and kept his eyes on her face. Great, I feel the same way too. We have feelings for each other, and you want me too. Cameron looked away, and her ears turned red. She whispered, Stop playing with me. Waylon's lips got closer, and his breath was on her face. Are you going to leave me alone in the room? Cameron snapped back and immediately escaped. I don't want your dirty ideas. She quickly left. Waylon was still smiling. Cameron immediately locked her door after getting into her room. She leaned against the door and took a deep breath, her heart racing. Did she really run away? She was ashamed that she wasn't as flirty as a man. The next day, at Coralia, Daisy went to the performance class to see the actor. The teacher brought her in and asked the actor out. When the actor saw Daisy, he was surprised. Once the teacher walked away, Daisy walked to him and asked with a smile, "You're Pierre, right? Can I speak to you?" Pierre lowered his head and didn't speak, as though he was afraid of something. Daisy looked around. "Don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just here to ask why you left." Pierre was suddenly very impatient. "You already know why." She paused. He continued. "That woman was right. You're surely going to take revenge. You're not as nice as you look. Even when you said that it wasn't a big deal, you still got the director to send me away." Daisy was shocked. "Who told you that I asked the director to do that?" Pierre refused to speak, but Daisy had an idea who it was. Was it Tiffany Cullen? He still wouldn't reply. Daisy looked down with a calm expression. "You've been lied to, and I don't blame you. I hope that you won't blindly listen to what others tell you. You need to find out more information and form your own conclusion." She leaned forward and looked at Pierre. "I won't ask for your understanding, but remember to make your own judgment about the things that happen in the future. I didn't ask the director to send you away, so I want to have you back on the team if you're still willing." Pierre was surprised. Daisy handed him a piece of paper. "Think about it and give me a call. I'll be waiting." Then she turned and left. Pierre watched as she walked away and crushed the paper in his hand. Daisy returned to the set. What Pierre had said was stuck in her mind. Zafir was the one who had asked him to leave, but why did Pierre make it sound like he was sent away? Tiffany had obviously misled Pierre. Had Zafir really investigated this? Daisy pressed her lips together and suddenly stopped a crew member. "Where's Zafir?" She had to speak to him. The member replied, "He's in his room." Daisy walked over, knocked on the door, and entered. Zafir had just gotten off a phone call and was surprised to see Daisy. Daisy? Chapter 2323. Zafir placed the phone down and walked over with a smile. "Why are you here?" Daisy looked around. "Can we talk?" Zafir's smile faded a little. After a pause, he walked to the couch and poured some hot water into the kettle. "Of course we can." "About what?" "Zeph, I'd like to have Pierre back on set." He paused and raised his brows at her. Daisy calmly said, "He wasn't wrong. And since we still need to find someone to replace him, that will be too much of a hassle. Why not just bring him back?" "Daisy, even if he wasn't at fault, he indirectly affected the shoot. I was just concerned about you." Daisy asked, "Did you find out what really happened?" Zafir looked at her and didn't speak. "Zeph, Tiffany was the one who affected the shoot. If she hadn't misled Pierre, none of that would have happened." "But why was Pierre fired while Tiffany got to walk away by herself?" Zafir got up. "Daisy, are you suspecting me of something?" She looked serious. "I don't want to, Zeph." Unfortunately, she couldn't help but do it. If Nolace could get to the bottom of things, why couldn't he? He knew that Tiffany was the problem, yet Pierre was the one sent away. If Tiffany was afraid that the actor would snitch, it would only benefit her if he was sent away. However, the director hadn't requested for Pierre to leave. Zafir was the one who had done that. There was no way she didn't suspect him. Zafir walked over to her and held her shoulder. "I did all that because I wanted to keep you safe." Daisy was surprised. "You fainted because of the fever during the shoot and almost drowned. No one would be able to take responsibility for that, so I couldn't let him stay. Do you understand?" She took a deep breath. "What about Tiffany?" Zafir fell silent. Daisy pushed his hand away. "Zeph, if you think that Pierre is in the wrong, so is Tiffany. Did you really investigate, or did you choose to help her cover up? Are you the person who's backing her up?" The last question made Zafir's face drop, and he balled up his fists. After a long pause, he said, "What kind of person do you think I am?" The question sounded weak. Daisy looked down. "I don't know. I used to think that you were a gentle and understanding person. Then I started struggling to understand who you are. I think you've changed, yet you might not have. All I know is that you're no longer the Zeph of the past." Zafir looked at her for a long time. "Maybe you never really knew me, Daisy, including how I..." "Zeph." She cut him off. "I hope that we'll still be friends." He revealed a sad smile. "What if I don't want to be friends?" Daisy pressed her lips together and turned to walk to the door. She stopped but didn't look back. "If that's your choice, we'll have to cut all ties." She opened the door and left. Zafir smiled, but his face slowly turned dark. "Could you be so cruel to me?" The next day. During the shoot, Zafir would ask to reshoot every time Daisy made a small mistake. Every scene and small detail would require a few reshoots. The crew members were all shocked. Daisy would usually just need one reshoot, and Shannon thought that it was fine, but Zafir kept calling for a redo. It was obvious he was challenging her. Chapter 2324. What's going on with Zafir? Didn't he always have good things to say about Daisy's acting? Yes. Don't you think he's being unreasonably picky today? The crew members chattered quietly, wondering if Daisy had done something to offend Zafir. He finally moved to the next scene after dozens of retakes. The person acting alongside Daisy looked bothered and was holding back the grievance. Daisy was walking to her trailer when James called out to her. He walked over quickly and asked, "What's wrong with Gosling? Did you have a fight with him?" Daisy didn't reply. James rolled up his sleeves. "I'm going to speak to him." Daisy held him back. "Don't. It's between the two of us. Can't you say that he was intentional?" James scoffed. "You can't even be friends, because he can't get you? You're enemies now? That's all he has?" Daisy looked at him. "He's the director, and we're just actors. Even if there is animosity, we still have to finish the shoot, right?" James crossed his arms. "That man doesn't deserve to be a director. You treated him like a friend and didn't have the heart to reject him, but him? Has he ever treated you as a friend?" She didn't speak. James continued. "Even if you can't be friends, he should be professional. How could he torture you with his position? You're the one who has to deal with trouble for being too nice." After that, he left. Daisy looked down. She never thought that Zafir would turn out this way. She had been under the impression they used to be the best of friends, but in reality, people changed. Knowles returned to the hotel and saw Daisy asleep on the couch. He frowned as he removed his jacket and hung it on his arm. He took off his shoes and walked to the couch. He then held out his hand to touch her face, but paused when he noticed that she had been crying. He picked up her phone, found James' number, and saved it to his phone. He then texted him. "I'm Knowles. Did something happen to Daisy during the shoot today?" James soon replied, and Knowles' eyes grew dark after reading the text. Daisy bumped into him when she turned around. She slowly opened her eyes and sat up. You're back." Knowles cupped her cheek and looked into her bloodshot eyes. "Were you crying?" She paused, then wiped the corners of her eyes. "I was just too tired." "Did Zafir put you in a tough spot?" She didn't answer. Knowles took a deep breath, leaned in close, and pressed his forehead to hers. "Daisy, I don't want to see you crying for another man, no matter the reason." Daisy looked away. "Nolly, I just don't understand. Why do people change so quickly? Lisa in the past and Zafir now were both my friends, but in the end, they no longer are." Knowles hugged her and kissed the top of her head. "Do you think it's your fault?" She shook her head. Knowles whispered, "If you don't think it's your fault, there's no need to be sad about it. People change, and everyone's mindset changes as time passes. You treat Zafir as a friend, but that's not what he wants. Once the line was crossed, everything changed. Chapter 2325. Daisy leaned on Nala's shoulder. I'm sorry. Nole smiled. Silly girl, why are you apologizing? Daisy sat up straight and looked at him. I might not have known who he really is, and now I'm suspecting him. Even though I don't want to, I just can't understand why he did what he did. Nolace brushed her face with his finger. Do you think he's the person behind Tiffany Cullen? Daisy paused before nodding. He smiled. I've asked Edison to keep an eye on her. After leaving the set, she went to see that influencer. Daisy was shocked. Why? Nolace replied. She thought that if that woman took the blame, she would be able to get away. Why else would she be going on talk shows and not avoiding the online comments instead? If Tiffany was brave enough to go on shows, she would be brave enough to deny everything. She just wanted revenge, and Sophie was attracted to the money and did the rest herself. She had apologized so that people would think that she was honest and talked about her intention to target Daisy. However, the honey trap was unrelated to her. That meant she had lost a battle, but won the war. Even though she was affected, she had a chance to get away clean. Daisy frowned. Would that influencer really do that? Nole smiled. If Tiffany knows something about her, she will have to do what she says even if she doesn't want to. Daisy pressed her lips together. Nolly, I want to do something. He kissed her forehead. I'll tell you when there's something you can help with. At Bassburg, at the Seaview Villa. Colton now had a ritual when he returned from the office. He would go to the baby room to see Hope, who would always be sleeping. The nanny smiled and said, Hope will be turning a month old soon. Colton looked at the soft baby in his arms and was shocked. It's been a month already? Yes, children grow up very quickly. We'll have a full moon celebration for her when she's a month old. Colton poked his daughter's little face. My daughter's party will be a good one. He laid her down in the crib and suddenly asked, Where's Freya? The nanny replied. She went out after putting Hope to sleep. Colton frowned. Did she say where she was going? She shook her head. No. Colton fell silent. Freya seemed to be hiding something from him. He didn't ask because he wanted her to tell him, but she didn't seem to plan to. Freya finally got home at night. She changed into indoor slippers and jumped when she saw Colton leaning against the wall the moment she turned around. Why are you standing there? Colton squinted as he asked, Where were you? She placed the keys on top of the cabinet and walked in. Running some errands. Colton held her by her wrist and pulled her into his arms. Freya Pruitt, are you hiding something from me? Freya was surprised and replied after a long pause, Yes. You can't tell me about it? Not really. Are you cheating on me? That question shocked Freya. Colton, is something wrong with your brain? He looked serious. Why do you have to hide it, then? Since you're hiding it, I assume that it's an affair. Which man are you meeting behind my back? Freya chortled. Don't worry, Mr. Goldman. I won't have an affair before you do. Chapter 2326. I won't. Colton was very serious about this matter. Something flitted across Freya's eyes. Actually, there's something I'd like to discuss with you. What is it? Seeing how anxious he was, Freya chuckled helplessly and said, I'm going back to Yarramore. Colton clenched at her shoulder. You're going back to Yarramore? Are you going to leave Charm and me behind? Freya was stunned. When have I ever said that I want to leave you two behind? Then why do you want to go back? It was only then Colton realized that he had overreacted. After all, she had said that she would leave him before giving birth to Charm. That's why he panicked. I didn't even attend the retest for the postgraduate exam. But if you don't want me to go, then I won't go. Wait. Colton grabbed her arm. Retest for the postgraduate exam? Freya showed him the text message on her phone and said, I've been putting it off for a year, and when I wasn't pregnant with Charm, I was going to finish the exam after I was done with the script. Colton turned around to look at her. Freya, there's something I've wanted to ask you for a long time. Why did you move away 3 years ago? Why did you come to Basburg afterward? After that night they spent together, there was a misunderstanding. Freya had assumed he left in the morning without saying anything because he did not want to acknowledge their relationship. However, the truth was that he was worried she would regret it when she woke up, and that was something he did not know how to deal with. Then, she moved away, and they lost contact with each other. He did not see her anymore, even after he returned to Zlokova. But he knew that Freya had been keeping in touch with Daisy. It was just that she never reached out to him. After that, she appeared in Basburg, and she knew that he was in Basburg too. Freya looked at Colton. She knew that he wanted to know why she went missing 3 years ago. She pressed her lips and said, "Didn't I already tell you? You were the one who left first in the morning. I thought you were not into our relationship. I was angry about it, so I decided to ignore you." "That's why you moved away?" No matter how angry she was, she would never move to a place where he could not find her. Freya was momentarily stunned and lowered her eyelids. "I didn't move away because of you." Colton looked at her, and she said slowly, "After you left that morning, she came to me." "She?" Colton frowned. "Mrs. Pruitt?" Freya nodded. Only then did understanding dawn upon Colton, including why Sandy brought Didi to Basburg. It occurred to him that Freya had moved away because of her mother. He pulled Freya into his arms and asked, "Then why didn't you call me?" She buried her head in his chest and replied, "How could I call you, and what should I say when I called you? I never thought we would be together at all." She was speaking the truth. She had not thought that they could be together before she came to Basburg. She had been under the impression he had already gotten over her. Colton pinched her cheek and asked, "Then why did you come to Basburg?" "Why couldn't I come to Basburg? What if you had already forgotten about me?" Colton chuckled and hugged her tightly in his arms again. "There's no way I can forget about you. Do you know that I was so angry with you that I wanted to choke you to death that time? I'll sue you for domestic violence." He laughed and whispered into her ear, "Does it count when we're in bed?" Freya beat him up out of exasperation. "What the hell are you talking about?" Colton ran around in the room and said, "Now you're abusing me." "Freya. I'm going to shout if you don't stop now." She snorted angrily and threw a tissue box at him. "How can you be so shameless?" Suddenly, both of them heard Charm crying. They hastily went upstairs to the baby's room and saw Charm crying. Chapter 2327. Freya went forward and picked her up. "Charm, why are you crying?" All right, Mommy is here." However, Charm did not stop crying, no matter how Freya tried to comfort her. Freya touched her diaper and lowered her head. "Oh no, she has pooped." She hastily threw Charm into Colton's arms, stunning him. "Wait. She pooped, so why did you give her to me?" While Freya was opening up a new diaper, she said, "She's your daughter. How can you say no to your daughter's poop?" Colton was rendered speechless. Freya gave him the diaper and said, "You do it." He was stunned again. "I'll do it?" She urged him, "Yes, hurry up. I'll guide you." Colton put his daughter back on the bed. The disgust on his face was really evident when he undid her diaper. Freya could barely suppress her laugh. When she saw Colton was going to wipe their daughter's butt with a paper towel, she cleared her throat and looked at the box of baby wipes. After Colton wiped their daughter's butt with the baby wipes, he helped her to put on the diaper. Freya chimed in and said, "You've got it backward." "There is a difference?" She chuckled. "It's okay. You'll get it after changing it a few more times." After a long time, Colton finally helped his daughter put on a new diaper. He did not expect that raising a child was even more difficult than signing a contract. Charm had slept a lot, so she did not go back to sleep anymore. She kept her eyes open and looked at them. Freya sat at the side of the bed and held out her fingers for her to grab and play with. Charm giggled. Colton went closer and caressed her cheek. My daughter looks like an angel. His daughter's skin had smoothened out and was not as crumpled as when she was born. At the very least, she was not that ugly now. Charm raised her leg and kicked his face, causing Freya to let out a laugh. Colton grabbed her little feet. Is this how you treat your father? Charm kicked him again and laughed happily. Hashtag Tiffany is on a variety show. Hashtag Tiffany revealed there is another story to the Badger game. Hashtag. After Daisy woke up and arrived at the shooting site to get her makeup done, she saw these two pieces of news and tapped on them. It was Tiffany talking about why she had withdrawn from the shooting in a variety show. Just as Knowles had expected, Tiffany blamed the female influencer and told everyone that she was the victim. Even though many netizens refused to believe her and thought she was just making excuses, it still gave Tiffany a great amount of exposure. In the entertainment industry, there were a lot of celebrities who became popular in this way. They first made themselves look like a bad person on the internet, and then they found a way to whitewash themselves while gaining a ton of followers in the process. Right now, the comment section was flooded with Tiffany's followers. Hashtag Tiff is just stating the truth. She isn't a hypocrite like someone. Hashtag ha, I'm sure Daisy must have done something. That's why Tiff dislikes her so much. Besides, she has the guts to admit her mistake, so I don't understand why you are all scolding her. Are you sure there is nothing wrong with Daisy? Just because she has a big family background, does everyone have to follow her? Hashtag I suggest Daisy's followers stop bringing more hatred to her. It's embarrassing. If it weren't for her family background, do you think she could have become so popular? Hashtag. Meanwhile, Daisy received a call from an unknown number. She answered it, and it was a call from Pierre. After Daisy finished her conversation with Pierre, she went to look for Shannon. After she shared her thoughts with Shannon, he fell silent and thought for a while. Since they couldn't find a suitable young actor, he nodded in the end. Just when Daisy was about to go away, she ran into Zafir. She was stunned for a moment but braced herself and walked past him. Zafir did not call her either. He stopped in his tracks, turned around to look at Daisy, and pressed his lips tightly. Chapter 2328. When Shannon came out and saw Zafir, he called out to him. Zeph. Zafir turned his head around and offered him a smile. Yeah, Mr. Fallon? Daisy wanted to bring that young actor back into the crew. Since you're the one who asked him to leave, I want to ask your opinion about this. In the end, Shannon decided to ask Zafir for his opinion. After all, Zafir had persuaded the young actor to quit the film because the young actor had caused problems for the crew members. Now that they were calling him back, he did not want to make things difficult for Zafir. Something flitted across Zafir's eyes as he said with a smile, if Daisy wants to bring him back, then I don't have any problem with it. Shannon nodded. Then, he said, Zeph, maybe you should try to separate personal from business affairs. Shannon had realized something, so he figured that he should give Zafir some advice. Zafir did not say anything in return, and Shannon left after giving him that advice. Soon, Pierre returned. After Shannon talked to him, he promised that he would do his best in the shooting. The crew members were not prejudiced against Pierre because of what he had done. After all, everyone knew that Tiffany had manipulated him. After Pierre finished his part, he went to the trailer to look for Daisy. Daisy bought him a cup of milk. Pierre felt embarrassed and apologized to her. I'm sorry for what I did before. Daisy chuckled and caressed his hair. I've already forgiven you. You don't have to apologize to me. After Pierre left, James came. He leaned on the trailer and looked in the direction Pierre had disappeared. I can't believe that you asked him back. Daisy said, well, he just got manipulated, so I don't see the reason we can't give him a second chance. James looked at her. You're so kind-hearted. Daisy smiled and looked at him. My part will finish next month. You need to watch out for yourself since I won't be here to take care of you. James studied her and said, wow, judging from the fact that you're asking me to take care of myself, Are you ready to sever your ties with your friend? Daisy lowered her eyes and replied, not yet. It's just that I don't think there's any need to maintain some friendships. If Zafir really was the one behind Tiffany, then there was no need for her to be his friend anymore. At Basberg, at Black Gold. Leonardo brought Knoles back to the office. Knoles pushed the door open, and Colton closed his document and raised his head. I thought you're keeping Daisy company at Karelia? What did you come back for? I want to talk about someone with you. Knoles sat on the couch. Colton came to the couch and sat opposite Knoles. Leonardo brought them 2 cups of tea and put them on the table. Who do you want to talk about? Zafir, replied Knoles. Colton froze for a moment and looked at him. Why do you want to talk about him? I'm sure you saw the news about Daisy and me some time ago, right? Knoles asked indifferently. Colton took a sip from the tea and replied, yeah. After that, he put the cup down and continued. You think Zafir is behind the incident? Knoles leaned against the back of the couch and said, yeah. Colton frowned but did not say anything. Daisy said that you guys have been friends since you were kids and that you attended the same school, so you should know more about him than I do. I haven't liked him since I was a kid. I don't know why, but he feels like a hypocrite to me. Colton looked at the tea in the cup. If it wasn't for the fact that he was nice to Daisy, I wouldn't have let him have the opportunity to get close to her. Chapter 2329. Daisy and Zafir had been good friends since they were young. After Lisa's incident, Zafir and Leah were the people who helped her get back on her feet. Knoles looked at him and said, he sees Daisy more than as a friend. Colton clicked his tongue and replied, are you jealous of him? Knoles picked up the cup and chuckled. Why should I be jealous of him? You've underestimated Daisy's love for me. She'll only stand on my side. Colton snorted. Stop it. It's gross. Knoles took a sip from the tea and asked, did Zafir do anything in the past? Colton thought for a while and asked, what do you mean? He said, has Zafir ever done anything behind Daisy's back? Colton fell silent for a moment and suddenly remembered something. Do you still remember what Lisa said when she was trying to hurt Daisy? Knoles thought for a while and replied, she said it's you and Daisy who destroyed her future since you guys were the ones who made her unable to study at any school in Basberg. Daisy thought I did it, but it wasn't me. Still, I'm not sure if it's his doing or not. They were the last ones to learn that Lisa had been expelled from the school. As for why she had been expelled, Colton had assumed it was a decision made by the school. He had not done anything and had never ordered the schools in Basberg not to accept Lisa. However, other than the Goldmans, only the Goslings could do such things at that time. Meanwhile, Edison arrived at the house of the female influencer. He knocked on the door for a long while, but no one came to answer the door. Edison frowned. He had been watching the female influencer for a few days and hadn't seen her leave the house. Feeling that something was not right, Edison kicked the door open and entered the room. The female influencer was lying unconscious on the side of the bed, and the floor was littered with a bottle of medicine. When Knoles came out of Black Gold, he received a call from Edison. Sir, Miss Larson tried to kill herself by taking sleeping pills. I've already sent her to the hospital. Knoles frowned. How is she now? Edison replied, the doctor has performed gastric lavage, and she's safe now. Watch her closely in the hospital. I'm on my way back. Knoles ended the call and frowned deeply. At Karelia, at the hospital, Edison was standing outside of the ward. After the female influencer came around, he went inside, Miss Larson. The female influencer looked at the ceiling blankly. Why am I not dead yet? She had lost the courage to live. She had to suffer mean comments from the netizens and her neighbors. Whenever she went, people would look at her with contempt as if she was the worst kind of person in the world. She had to live in fear every day, and she really had enough of it. Standing at the side of the bed, Edison asked, why did you try to end your life? I can't keep it going anymore. I'm scared. Tears were trickling down from the corner of her eyes. She had been under the impression she just needed to stay low profile for a while, and people would forget about this matter after some time. All she had done was just put on a show. She thought she would have nothing to do with it after getting the money, but she did not expect that she would end up being somebody else's scapegoat. She wanted to tell the truth. She wanted to tell everyone that things were not as Tiffany said. But she was scared. She was scared that Tiffany might come and look for her. Edison looked at her and said, "If you die, then Tiffany will get what she wants. I'm sure you know who put you in this situation. Are you really willing to die just like that?" The female influencer was stunned. "Yeah, he's right. I can't just die like that. Why must I be her scapegoat?" After she calmed down, Edison asked, "What does Tiffany have on you?" The female influencer clutched tightly at the duvet. She still didn't trust Edison completely, so she asked, "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" Chapter 2330. Edison replied, "I work for Mr. Knowles. Mr. Knowles is going to give you a chance to prove your innocence. I'm sure you know who's the mastermind behind this incident, right?" The female influencer's face turned pale. She fell silent for a moment before spilling the truth. "Tiffany and I were college friends. We graduated from the same film academy. However, after I graduated, I could only work on some web series. I couldn't make a name for myself, so I decided to become an influencer. As for her, she did better than me in the entertainment industry. She was far behind Tiffany in terms of her fame and status in the entertainment industry. Even though Tiffany was not an A-lister, she was a C-list actress at the very least. However, Sophie was an F-lister, still living in straitened circumstances even after becoming an influencer. Sophie told her fans that she was a socialite, but the reality was that everything she owned, including her luxury house and sports cars, was not hers. She rented from other people. Therefore, she owed a lot of money, but luckily, her income as an influencer was able to pay off the installment. Later, she slowly started losing her followers. She couldn't pay off the installment anymore with her salary, so she had no choice but to borrow money from Tiffany. Tiffany lent her $40,000 without any hesitation, so Sophie was very thankful for her at that time. After that, Tiffany asked her for help in setting up Knowles. She had hesitated for a long time but couldn't say no to Tiffany because she still owed her money. In the end, she had no other choice but to help Tiffany. After Edison learned the whole thing, he said, "So, you helped her to set up Mr. Knowles because you owe $40,000? Sophie lowered her head and said, "There's nothing I could do. She wanted me to pay her back the money in one go if I refused to help her. I don't have that much money. She knows that I owe a lot of debts, and everything I have, including those luxury bags, sports cars, and the luxury house, is rented. If she exposes me on the internet, my career will be ruined." Tiffany knew all her secrets. She was not a socialite who came to experience life, but an ordinary model. She initially gained a lot of fans by telling everyone that she was a socialite who came to experience life, and everyone believed in her. If Tiffany exposed her, then she wouldn't be able to continue to be an influencer anymore. Sophie covered her face and cried. She was just doing Tiffany a favor. She did not expect things to turn out this way. Now she had become the street rat that everyone despised. She had had enough of facing cyber violence and the glares of her neighbors every day. Edison sighed. "You still have your hands and feet, so I'm sure you can find a way to feed yourself even after you stop being an influencer. You're just trapped by your fake persona. You can't let go of the life of standing under the limelight and being adored by other people. Fame and fortune are a double-edged sword. When you're enjoying your life, you should consider the consequences of exposure. What you lack is the courage to face it. Otherwise, Tiffany's threat wouldn't be able to work for you. On the contrary, the one who should be wary of you is her. You're not even afraid of death, so why do you have to be afraid of her threat?" It was already 7 p.m. by the time Knowles returned to Coralia. He received a message from Edison. "All done." After reading the message, he stored the phone in his pocket. When he returned to the suite in the hotel, Daisy was drying her hair in the bathroom. She was wearing a very thin nightgown that accentuated her figure. Nole stepped into the bathroom and hugged her from the back. As he sniffed her hair, he commented, "You smell so good, Daisy." She blinked and said, "Help me to dry my hair." Nole chuckled and took over the hairdryer. While he ran his fingers over her soft and silky hair, he asked, "Are you not going to ask me where I've been?"